Okay. Yes. I will take my mask off. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Venue for Venues. We are thrilled to have some friends here from Fitzgerald's, and we've kind of got a unique thing where one of the people that work behind the scenes at Fitzgerald's is also an excellent singer-songwriter. So we're going to give it up to him for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Donnie Biggins.
Take me back to New Orleans, the city my sober eyes have never seen, a town that deserves our memories. Take me back to New Orleans, I just want to be there with my girl. No one else, just her and me. Beignets and coffee and balconies. I just want to be there with my girl. We'll hit the shops on Magazine Street and browse the art, the boutiques, vintage pavers under our feet. We'll hit the shops on Magazine Street. A southern stroll through Jackson Square. When the sun is right, you'll hit your knees. You'll recommit your vows to me. A southern stroll through Jackson Square. Take me back to New Orleans, the city my sober eyes have never seen, a town that deserves our memories. Take me back to New Orleans. 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 Thank you. Thank you to the venue for having us here. This next song I wrote in February 2020. When I traded whiskey for pounds of ground coffee, my friendships grew stronger, my marriage did too. I learned that I'm lazy when my mind is hazy, so I practice meditation and exercise too. The Doctors will tell you that they found a cure. They'll write you a script and they'll keep you real poor. Decades of failure sure is a scarer. It only get better, it has to for sure. When I traded whiskey for pounds of ground coffee, my friendships grew stronger, my marriage did too. I learned that I'm lazy when my mind is hazy. Practice meditation and exercise too. The doctors will tell you that they found a cure. They'll write you a script and they'll keep you real poor. Decades of failure sure is a scarer. It only get better, it has to for sure. The doctors tell you that they found a cure. They'll write you a script, they'll keep you real poor. Decades of failure sure is a scarer. It only get better, it has to for sure. It only get better, it has to for sure. All right. Thank you. The HVAC system just shut off in here, by the way, and it's very silent. This next song goes out to William Duncan, the owner of Fitzgerald's, and he always said that he really likes this song, so that's why I'm going to play it for you. Who's gonna live in all these high rises? Who's gonna pay the tax and the mortgages? With all of the old money dying, developers crying, who's gonna live? Who's gonna live? Who's gonna take care of these little kids? Who's gonna rid themselves of behaviors hid? With all of the parents out of work now, it's hard to figure out how they're gonna live. Are they gonna live? Who's gonna fix the towns and the government? Who's gonna stop the incompetent residents? They're calling the poor man essential. It's strictly financial. Does he have to live? Does he have to live? Who's gonna live in all these high rises? Who's gonna pay the tax and the mortgages? With all of the old money dying, developers crying, who's gonna live? Who's gonna live? Thank you.
Donnie Biggins, everybody. Before we get the show underway with Fitzgerald's for a second, let's talk to Donnie about music. 2016 was the last record, Profiles, which is still available on vinyl, correct?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
would people either procure this item or get to know more about your music?
Sure. I would send people to Bandcamp to get the vinyl. So, actually, this Friday coming up is the free Friday from Bandcamp. So, yes, it's available on vinyl and digital download on Bandcamp. You can also send me a message, and I will send you my Venmo and send you a record.
Cool.
Yes.
And can you just take a second to explain what Free Friday is at Bandcamp for those don't
Yeah.
know?
So Bandcamp, when the pandemic began, they, for a way for artists to make money, they eliminated their fees from the Bandcamp sales and gave 100% to all artists on the first Friday of every month.
It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good cause. And again, Donnie Biggins, check out more of his music if you can. We are very happy to have these two here tonight. And we've got Donnie, who's not only singer-songwriter, he is talent buyer at Fitzgerald's. And we have Grace Jackson here, who does marketing, graphic design, and all social media for Fitzgerald's. And how I like to usually start the program is to ask both people, and I'd like to start with Grace. What was some of your earliest musical influences? What made you decide you wanted to work in the music industry, and how did it happen? Grace?
Hi, everyone. Music, my early music memories are really like some of the first CDs I ever listened to were like Sugar Ray. Listen to Sugar Ray still a lot. And then I moved into like rap music and things that my older brother Colin would listen to, which evolved into this obsession with lyrics. And now I think I'm more into like indie rock and folk stuff. So there's a band called Pine Grove who I will talk your ear off about if I meet you in person. They're just my favorite. I love every record of theirs. And I think the latter half of that question was, how did I get into the music industry?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been a lover of music for a really, really long time, and unfortunately don't play any instruments. I am the worst singer ever. It was always like a huge dream of mine to work somehow in like the management, but I didn't have any experience in that. And I saw that there was a music venue in Berwyn hiring, and I freaked out, was really, really nervous, sent in a resume and said, I think I would fit really well for this position, and Donnie and Will reached out, and the rest is history, I think.
And I think it's key to mention, though, to everybody, when did you start?
I started 4 days before we went into quarantine. So it was a Monday I started, and things were normal. I remember like there was some chatter about, places are going to shut down. Everybody's going to have to start wearing masks. And I was like, there's no way that's going to happen. That sounds so weird. And then Friday, I think it was right before St. Patrick's Day last year. Will got a call from his wife, Jess, and she was like, it's happening, like the world's shutting down. We've got to stop. We can't have a St. Patrick's Day fest. And Will was like, oh man, well, it's only going to be until April. And then
here we are.
Yeah, here we are. It's been an interesting view of the music industry. My viewpoint is interesting because I've only had 4 days where it was normal. There was a couple of shows before we went into quarantine. So
right. And before, Donnie, you tell us a little bit about your history in music, can you just tell us what it felt like? I don't want to call it the dream job, but here you are, this big music fan who longs to work in music. You get to work for a venue that's like got this reputation as this historic place. This is where you want to be. And then 4 days later, you're being told, by the way, you're shut down.
Yeah, I think I don't even know. I think Donnie would agree with me that there's this optimism at Fitzgerald's that Will has brought. It was never a downer. Like, it was like, oh, dang, of course, like, this would happen. But there was always something that was happening and has been happening since. So it hasn't been a sad thing.
Cool.
It's been a, like, how do we bring music to people now?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool. Donnie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your musical history?
Sure. I would say that I've been obsessed with music pretty much the majority of my life. My family loves music. No one really played a lot of instruments in my family, but we were constantly listening to music. Any activity I can remember always has a musical component related, or the radio's on. 93 XRT was on.
Yeah.
And, you know, and not a big surprise in any way, but I was obsessed with, like, John Lennon as a child, and that quickly, we're a John Lennon house, by the way, at my house, and a Harry Nilsson house. And so my dad really pushed that music onto me. And my brother's 7 years older than me, and he is a big influence on me musically too. Besides the Doors, I never got into the Jim Morrison fandom that my brother did, just in case he's tuning in. And so that quickly, like, I can remember my first concert was whatever Tinley Park's venue is now called, the outdoor.
Yeah.
It was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers in 1995, and I was a fanatic of Tom Petty at that age. I was 9 years old, and you know, Tom Petty, I would say, has stuck with me my entire life. The simplicity, in a way, where you listen to a song of his, and there's, like, you kind of feel like there's nothing to it. I love that in music, and I love his lyrics. So I'm a very lyric-driven listener. And I didn't really get into Bob Dylan songwriting until I was about 19, and then Woody Guthrie immediately to follow, just trying to learn about other influences, and that all kind of stemming from, like, a big obsession with Wilco, because you have to remember, you know, I was just like a teenager when Wilco was starting to, like, you know, kind of take over the Chicago music world, and so that was exciting to me, and I was just a super fan, and that just drove me into wanting to write and play my own music.
Okay.
So that was all, like, early 20s when I started to do that.
And how did that move into the business aspect of things?
I quickly was learning how to book the band I was in, the Shams, and trying to go out to all the Chicago venues. This is like 2009, 2010, and basically asking people, how do I get a show here? We're going to bring, you know, at that point, you have a young fan base, and everyone's excited to go out to bars, and so you can really promote. We would do physical ticket sales all the time, and coerce our friends to bring 5 people,
Sure.
And we were, you know, really out and about every night. Our band would go out to other clubs and introduce ourselves to the musicians playing, and we were trying to really build a little community of friends that were all also musicians. And what came out of that was an idea called the Chicago Roots Collective, and this was like a organization of 10 bands that the Shams were a part of, and we would have meetings at our house. We all lived together, by the way, in the band. 3 of us, 3 out of 5 lived together. And so we would host meetings once a month, and we would share information with each other about how we got a show, or how can we make a concert better, how can we increase attendance and work harder as a whole collective. and so venues started to, I'd email them that, "Hi, I'm Donnie from the Chicago Roots Collective. I'd like to book a concert at your, I have a 4-band bill ready to go. You don't have to do anything, just give me a date." And so that was just like progressing rapidly, and then people started asking me to book their band.
Cool. And when did it change from doing more for the Shams and then doing more for others?
That was around 2012.
Okay.
And that was also when my wife was expecting a baby, and I needed to kind of figure out a profession that I wanted to put all my energy towards. And I had started to work at that time as like an assistant talent buyer at House Call Entertainment at Subterranean and Beat Kitchen. So I had my foot in the door by then, and then I left that job to create Harmonica Done, which is my independent concert promotional company, mainly so I could stay home and be with Maeve, and work at night, just so I could be flexible with my work schedule.
Cool. All right. So now we have a little bit of history of where everybody's come from and why they're here. And talk me through this and correct me if I'm getting the facts wrong. But it's my understanding that Will Duncan buys Fitzgerald's, launches this new version of Fitzgerald's. I would assume anybody tuning in here knows Fitzgerald's. It's an absolute Chicago area institution and loved by many. It's been, I think the Fitzgeralds bought the building in like 1980. I'll get to some of the history in a second, but here's what fascinates me is Will Duncan takes over, you climb on board, you've been there for a little while, you were trained by Bill, and then the pandemic hits. And yet one of the things I find really fascinating, let's just get to it, is that when lockdown happened and everybody was really worried, musicians, production people, staff, everybody was really worried. And somehow one of the first venues that I saw just taking this positive stand and getting things outdoors and figuring out how to do things was Fitzgerald. So talk to me just about the energy of that moment. Like Grace, you were talking about how, hey, this wasn't really viewed as a negative thing. There was like an optimism and what do we do forward? Why don't we start there? Because that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I think those last couple weeks of March 2020, they just flew by. I mean, Will took over at the beginning, like a couple days before I joined the team. So I think that there was just like some cleanup. We were cleaning up the club. Like I said, I think that the governor had said just like until April 1st. Sure. So we thought, we have until April 1st to get stuff together. Marketing templates and stuff like that. So we worked a lot on that. And then when we found out we were going into quarantine for a while, we were just like, how do we start to, make money and stay alive? And we launched some merch, online merch. We got our website together, reevaluated our branding. And these truck concerts, I'm sure if you haven't seen Fitzgerald's truck concerts in 2020, go and check them out. It's incredible. We put musicians on the back of a truck, but that was a way to bring live music to people. Yeah. Instead, we couldn't bring people to the club, and so how are we going to do it otherwise?
Yeah, I think our first promotional graphic was like, "We'll bring the show to you," because it was a stay-at-home order, and so Jess, Will's wife, was mentioning like an ice cream truck, and then it turned into like a truck, and then we're like on a Zoom or our Google Meet in the mornings, and hashing out, okay, a truck, all right, we got a truck, now what do we do? And okay, we have to put John Langford in the truck, let's put John Langford in the truck. And we definitely learned as time has gone on, how to do it a lot more efficiently. But that initial thing, like this was when no one was leaving at all where they
Right.
lived. So they would step out onto their stairs or maybe open windows and the truck would come, and we rented a truck. We borrowed my dad's truck for the second show, and then we'll purchase the blue truck.
Blue truck.
And it had the new branding that Grace was developing on there. And so that whole process, that all started after okay, we're not going to stop working.
Right. One of the things I found fascinating about the truck thing, and maybe you can talk to us about this, was especially I saw various live streams, including Langford. Langford was the first one.
Yeah.
There was a beautiful thing, and maybe you can expound upon this, but it was almost this form of rebellion with compliance to health and safety. It was like, we're bringing this to you. We've got Langford rocking. That music is going to live again. But it was also not doing anything reckless or unsafe. That to me was kind of the brilliance of it. And like you're saying, when people were scared to leave their house, they could come on their front steps and get a little optimism and stuff. I mean, was that, when that was pitched, was all that thought about, or was that just kind of something that snowballed with this?
Yeah, I think we talked about in preparation. We had very strict rules that we sent out to the blocks that we were notifying. So we gather requests from towns to do the truck concerts, and then we pick 10 locations out of there. And we were very adamant about not sharing the locations we were going to do because we wanted to prevent gathering because it was so frowned upon in general at that time too. Sure. So we were very conscious about making sure that what we were doing was safe and was promoted in that way, and that the artist was safe, and cleaning mics, swapping mics out, and
Yeah.
we were all messed up, and gloves were a big thing then,
Yeah.
because we didn't know.
Right.
And so that, I mean, that was well thought out.
Yeah, safety was our number one concern. That was like what we hashed out in the beginning, just like what do we need to do to keep the people that are putting on the show safe? How do we tell people to not gather?
Yeah.
This was like a month and a half into staying at home, so people were really excited and wanted to gather, or ride their bikes behind. And even if they were alone, we would stop at a block, and if bikers all gathered around, we'd have to make sure to tell them to disperse. And that was what we did for 3 months of 2020.
It's really a cool concept. And I want to jump back a little bit, because when you talk about the blue truck, first of all, if anyone wants to tell me a bit about that blue truck, I'm fascinated because it's beautiful. But one of the things I also want to delve into before we get to the outdoor music scene, you had mentioned that the blue truck featured rebranding, which Grace has done. So can you maybe take a little bit of time and talk to us about what was there with Fitzgerald's, what's known of Fitzgerald's? How do you rebrand an institution that people are scared to see rebranded?
Yeah, totally. I think it was good to have a fresh eye. I knew about Fitzgerald's because my mom grew up in Oak Park, but I had never been. And truly one of the scariest things was having the opportunity to change, and not even change it, just breathe new life into the brand. So when we went into quarantine last year and people weren't coming, I just saw people talking online about how much they loved the place. I had the time to really understand what the community and our employees felt about it, and how Will and Donnie felt. And I realized that there's nothing, we should not change anything about it. I just looked around, and there was actually, our sidebar sign has Fitzgerald's on it. So there's the music venue, and then next door there's a bar called Sidebar. And on the side of Sidebar, there's a big hand-painted sign, and Fitzgerald's is written in calligraphy. And that's where this new branding was born. We took that and I refined it, and I think two of the things Will wanted to bring, in his ownership was live music and good drinks. So we added that underneath. Those are two of our staples of our brand. And I think that the brand is just all based in the property, which is what brings the people together. And I think that that's why it hasn't been so scary. It wasn't a change, it was evolving. So.
Yeah, well, one of the things I find fascinating is, and we were talking a bit about this backstage, so as a musician and as a patron of Fitzgerald's, when it was announced that the Fitzgerald's family was going to start to step down and retire and eventually sell the place, and correct me if I get any of these details wrong, but there was like there was a lot of anxiety with musicians playing there and patrons that were like, you can't change it. It's what it is, and nobody's going to do it like the Fitzgeralds. And the reason for that is because they built this incredible community. They built this wonderful place that musicians love to play and people love to go see music, and it went hand in hand. So when you have this institution, nobody wants to see anybody leave. Nobody wants to see anything change. And then eventually, as I understand it, Bill brought in you, Donnie, and you worked with him for a while and became talent buyer. And here's what I find fascinating, and then both of you please run with this, is that when you started talent buying, there was almost like this surprise with musicians where they were like, oh yeah, everything's cool, like everything's working fine. And then when Will took over, and especially during a pandemic, the word on the street was, there's this new life to this wonderful place, and it's staying this wonderful place. If anything, the colors are a little bit brighter again. Like, I've never heard any animosity towards the changes, so maybe you can both talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Let's see, 2017, the spring of 2017 is when I came in. I had for a long time been like one of the people that Bill would call to get recommendations on artists, or for a few years prior, I would always come into the office and we'd work on the festival together. And my role was to bring new bands to him, and I started kind of independently promoting a few shows, but I always was trying to get newer touring acts and newer bands through those doors. And in 2017, it was kind of at the point where Bill was ready to just retire from his day-to-day duties, and rightfully so. He had done it for 37 years, and so that's when I came in the springtime, and he was in an interview to talk about that he was going to retire from booking. And then in that interview, he also dropped a shocking notice to everyone that they're going to sell the club.
Right.
They're going to list it for sale. And nobody...
Yeah.
I didn't know about, like...
Oh, wow.
I knew that was down the road. Like, we had known that. And but no one expected it in this, like, Chicago Tribune article. And then... it still said, like, I remember the headline. It was on the front page of the Tribune. It was like, "Say it ain't so, Bill."
Right.
And there's like this picture of him in front of the club, and so we were all shocked. He dropped a bomb, and so that was where that fear was coming from.
Sure. And
I felt a lot of pressure because at that point the conversation was always. Well, you're not going to change. You're not going to change anything. You're not, or you're going to start booking punk shows in here, or like I have no idea. And I felt like he and I had worked on that festival that summer together, and then the following year, 2018, was when I had finally had like a full year of programming the space, and I put together the whole festival, and that was kind of a moment of, I don't know what the right word is, but comfort and security for the artists and community that, okay, everything's going to be okay.
The kid's okay.
Yeah, you know, I could high five people walking out at 4 a.m. that night after 4 days of madness. But so that was like I had to get to that point, you know, to prove my worth, I guess, to the community. And you know, I grew up 8 blocks away from Fitzgerald's, and it's always just been, you know, this pillar in the community. So tons of respect to the family and everyone that came out of it. But so it's just kind of living a dream.
Yeah, I bet. And taking that a step further, though, so the place does get sold. It gets sold to Will. And we heard from Grace earlier about the rebranding where she didn't, you know, she took the time to see what the community had said about the place. She decides, I don't really want to change things, but I have to make things modern. First, let's start with you, Donnie. What was it about you and Will that thought Grace is a good component? What was it that you saw that you thought this person is who we need? This is somebody who can help us move forward while staying rooted or not disavowing our past.
Tell me, Donnie.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, you know, on Grace's first day, I mean, that was the 4 days before shutdown. That was the first time we were working together ever. Okay. So, you know, obviously on paper, a very strong candidate for marketing and design. She had come from a background in tons of digital marketing, and that thinking about Fitzgerald's, we needed to up our social media. Yeah. I mean, up it by just like modernizing how we communicate, using Instagram more, and having like branding related to everything we do. And that is a huge strength of Grace's. And so, you know, we were also like, you know, best candidate to apply, right? I mean, it goes to the person who applies, but so it just felt, I don't know, it felt right. Cool. Grace and I both have a popcorn tattoo.
Yeah, we talked about popcorn a lot.
Yeah, so that was like an immediate connection. We were like, oh, I don't know anyone else that has a popcorn.
It's like almost in the same place too. It's so weird. Like right here. Yeah. Oh, here's mine.
Can we both get these on camera? This is important stuff here.
I got kernels all over.
Yeah, I've got a few kernels.
So that was a fun discovery.
Yeah, I think the branding, if I can remember correctly, I think I had sent a template for some Instagram posts. One of my first like job duties was to make templates that we could use for show promotion. And I had taken, so the old Fitzgerald's logo was like the outside of the club. It looked like a castle, what I would call the castle. And I put it into a square, but I like blew it up so you could kind of tell what it is, but not really. And I made these like fake promotions for Will and Donnie. Like I took pictures of them that I found on Google, and I put like Fitzgerald's Presents, and I sent them over, and I was like, this is what I would, you know, I suggest for Instagram. Let me know what you think. And Will was like, oh, wow, like that's great. Let's rebrand. You know, like how can we rebrand and make this a thing? I think it was really important too to develop a voice. Yeah. And I think we've done that really, really well. Especially, it was really important, especially in 2020, because people couldn't come to us. So how do we make ourselves relevant and stay, you know, involved in the community? And it was just, you know, consistent posting on social media, sending out a newsletter, and obviously the truck concerts.
I just want to say that Grace is probably the best newsletter preparer. Will is an excellent wordsmith. He's a great writer. And so when you combine that with Grace's newsletters, it's been, I don't know, something exciting. And we weren't doing that right prior to.
Sure. But to the same point, Grace had mentioned backstage that part of what she does social media, Instagram, Facebook, but there's a bunch of people in the Fitzgerald's community who are still not Insta, Facebook people. So that newsletter is key. So maybe talk to us a little bit about that, because that sounds like you've changed focus, and yet you've kept the newsletter intact. You're not telling people like, well, we don't do newsletters anymore. You got to go to Facebook because, people don't Facebook.
Yeah, I think in terms of marketing, it's important to remember that your audiences can be in different places, and if Fitzgerald's audience is not although we want younger people to come to the club and enjoy the music, a lot of the life and soul of Fitzgerald's is an older demographic, and we can't ignore them. And if they're not on Facebook and Instagram, we can't force them to go there. So I can't remember when we started. I think we started sending a newsletter like right away.
Cool.
And realizing what's important each week to discuss is, like, we start on Monday mornings. We have this like 3-hour meeting where we just talk about everything that's going on. And like Donnie said, we'll usually write something like an intro paragraph, and I take that and I disperse the information in a visual way so that it's appealing and then easy to break down. And then we use basically our newsletter as like the content pillar of what we talk about on social media and what's important that way. So
that's beautiful. Let's take this then. So we're rebranding. We've got truck concerts, and then somebody says, let's take it outside. About 3 months into the pandemic, did I hear right?
I think
Yeah, so we were, end of May was when I think restaurants were starting to reopen outdoors.
Okay.
And that was when, yes, it was how do we start having live music again? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think that also, like the governor said, or whoever said, places can open up patio service. And if you've ever been to Fitzgerald's, you know that there's a huge outdoor space that,
Right.
Kind of was used as a parking lot or just in various ways over, the 40 years it was there. And that was kind of like a big question, like, oh, what's going to happen? And I think Will just like stepped in to action one day and was like, we're doing it. And like 3 weeks later, we just had like a patio stage, and Donnie started booking shows, and we were marketing it. And it was special to me because it was the first time I've ever really seen people there. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that rush to do it, maybe tell us a little bit all the things that were in the rush to do it. Because you have a great description of the fact that there is, for those that don't know, and I would assume most know, that there is this big space there, and it gets used for the American Music Fest, but it's by and large like a parking lot. But given the safety standards, given the things for compliance, given the quickness with how you did it, it seems like everybody really had to work fast and do a lot of things.
I think one of the most special parts about being on this team is watching Will just go. He's not a dweller on negative things. Like he can just like make things happen, and it's so special. It's awesome to like have the opportunity to help, I don't know, get this place together. There's no, I don't know. Do you know what I mean, Donnie? I don't know how to explain what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's there. We've never stopped working.
Right.
So there's a constant drive and encouragement to get things done. And I think that when it was like, okay, we're building a stage, and then envisioning that, the patio was always going to come at some point, no matter what. So leading into the sale, like Will and I had been meeting for a few months prior and just talking about big, the grand ideas and things of what we can accomplish with the space. And the patio was always an idea in general. And so that it was just like time to do it now type of a reaction. And then, then it was like up to me to try to figure out kind of our scheduling of what music we'd, at first I was thinking always safety in mind, and I'm the worrier in our group, but always thinking about making sure that musicians felt safe performing, and so we were like no vocals, all instrumental bands, and lots of jazz. No one can sing. You're not allowed to sing, and so that was like how I started to book, and then I was thinking, well, people just want to gather and they just want to talk and see people, and they're going to talk over the music. So I got to think about that. I got to, just have all instrumental stuff. And then suddenly we were learning when the patio opened that people really just wanted to watch and listen.
Yeah.
And so then kind of with a little ease of restrictions, we started to change the booking into more. And I should mention, like, a lot of people were hesitant to perform.
Sure.
And so in my communication, I wasn't getting a lot of interest that we want to come play. So I was thinking about like residencies and a lot of repeats and then suddenly I felt like, it tipped over and people started to want to play. And then I was like, okay, well, we got to book a festival every weekend on the patio.
Well, and that was what was two things. One, it was interesting because the multi-band shows was a great concept, not only for patrons, but for artists that needed to get out. But one of the things that I would throw high praise your way at is when I played there, it was when people first started calling me to play, there was a fear because I would hear nightmare stories of musicians in a compromised situation where they arrived to a place and it turned out whatever the venue or the people or whatever, they were not going to comply, and they felt scared to be there. They felt like they were going against the grain of helping the cause. And one of the things, when you had reached out to me, I trusted you, so I knew things would be okay, but there was always a nervousness coming to a location and thinking, how is this going to play out? And it was like from the second I got there, it was like, oh, cool. This is safe as advertised, and the people who are here as patrons are being as cool as they're supposed to be, and we can do this. So I would assume that the tipping over wasn't just because of the fact people got fed up and really needed to come out and play, but people also started to see like they're doing it the right way. Did you feel the change in there? Did you start to see stuff spread around about it, or how did that go?
I would say, sorry, Donnie.
Oh, it's good.
I was monitoring a lot of our online presence, especially during that time. And it's only natural after 5 months or 3 months to 4 months of like being in quarantine and hearing that live music isn't going to happen for the next like 3 years. It's of course like, oh my gosh, like why? That's so scary. I don't want to go and gather like if somebody is singing. But it's exactly what you said. Safety is our number one priority, and once you're there, we have like Yelp reviews and Facebook reviews, and hearing the feedback from customers, especially. I think Donnie has more, obviously, contact with artists, so he gets your guys' feedback. Like, I felt completely safe here doing it, and then word spreads in the artist community that it's cool. But hearing like the customers say like they're doing this right, everything is 6 feet apart. I don't know, that gave more purpose into doing it and figuring out, like booking more bands, and it kind of gave us like this power to explore how to keep evolving and growing it, our patio shows.
One thing I want to say is that we also, in preparation of opening, we could have gone, we had two ways to go about it. We can charge tickets or keep it free.
Yeah.
And we went with free.
Right.
And so having all the concerts be free and the patio free and open to the public, and it just made it available to anyone, and
Sure.
that was accessible to everybody. We have this thing called a voluntary cover charge and cash tips for the artists. And what we were seeing and what we have seen is like even a lot of artists that traditionally might play Fitzgerald's a lot, in our sidebar shows or tiny shows, they were making legitimate money.
Yes.
Because it was free, to attend the concert, and you get 40 to 50 people on a Tuesday night, and they start drinking. They might leave a bigger tip than if they had to pay
Sure.
$10 at the beginning of the day. So it was an interesting,
I found that fascinating because when we went to play there, none of us had any expectations about money. We saw that it was an honest offer, and we thought, whatever happens, whatever. It's during the week, and we just want to play, and hopefully some friends will be there. But I think all of us were kind of shocked when the box was opened, and we were like, no, this is legit. And I think it talks to what you're saying, people coming out, knowing it's free, they can contribute a little more. But I think it also talks to the fact that there's that community spirit of people knowing this institution is doing this for not only to keep themselves afloat, but to keep musicians afloat. So people were maybe a little more generous to the cause, which also leads me to the point, and I'm sure this has been noted on the Facebook and stuff, but if you're donating tonight, and I wish I would have said this a little bit earlier, but we try not to be too much like a telethon here, but the money is going to Fitzgerald's, which is beautiful because as much as they're thriving, contributions really help the cause in any capacity. Now, I want to get away from the commercial and talk about the fact that as the outdoors started to thrive, and maybe remind me how many days a week you had music out there and about how many artists a week were playing out there. But one of the things I thought was amazing too was there was like this little beautiful period of time where musicians were getting out and weather was nice, and then all of us had the fear where we're like, well, it's not going to last forever, it's getting cold, and then it was like a fire pit. It was like the next day online, it was like, here we are, and then it was like, we're raising a tent. It was like, talk to me a little bit, both of you, about staying ahead of the curve, maybe marketing that to people, because it was like, oh, wow, this is going to keep going in a safe fashion, and we're not going to freeze.
October and November were some of the funniest times. Just, oh no, did you guys see, it's supposed to rain and it's going to be 40 degrees. What do? Send out a graphic that says how to stay warm at Fitzgerald's. We have a fire pit, wear your jacket, bring a blanket. We have hot toddies. Just, reminding people that it's just dress warm.
Yeah, you got to dress the part,
Sure.
Right? You don't go to a Bears game in January,
right,
in your shorts and expect a heater over your head, right? You got to be prepared to be outside, and also like with the music schedule. So Tuesday through Sunday,
okay,
and Saturdays and Sundays we have 3 concerts each Saturday and Sunday. So you can come, and the weeknight shows are 2 hours with a break. So I mean, you can come for a 2-hour limit or less. So if weather is questionable, you just got to bundle up for 90 minutes, and then you can head home. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say too that to the point of the shows being free, it's almost like non-committal. You're not paying a ticket price and feel obligated to stay, to get your money's worth.
Right.
Instead, it's like a you get to be in control of that and know, if I'm cold, I can go home. It was more about, in marketing our colder weather shows, how do we get people here and let them know, to stay as long as you want, this is how to do it. And, stay warm, drink a hot toddy, bring a bunch of people, or bring your household and huddle around.
Right.
We have a fire pit.
Well, and explain to me that, because I was late on the ball and tried to reserve a table for Paul Seabar in April, and the find a table is like, there is absolutely nothing. And so for those that know, you can reserve a table for free, but if you don't get a table, you're still welcome to come. There's a spot for you. But maybe tell me a little bit about this reservation thing, because what happens if somebody doesn't show up? How does it transfer tables? And
I would say that we have been learning with reservations. So but we've also have not run into many problems. So you can reserve a table for free, and we only book about, I don't know, 60% around there of our capacity in advance. So we leave room for walk up. And if you are walking up, we encourage you to arrive at door times, just because those seats can fill up fast if all the reservations are booked. So it's a weird thing that happens on the weekends where we always seem to find the table for the transition. There's like an AM and PM schedule, and so it's like we have all these moving parts where people are there to see a band from 4 to 6, and then our 7 to 9 reservations are also booked, but everything kind of naturally flows in and out.
Yeah,
So far.
in summer of 2020, I think that, I mean, we never had a patio before. We were learning how to do it, and now in 2021, we've like evolved and have figured out our communication on how to reserve tables, and reserving a table is not a ticket, which is why we allow walk-ins. This is a community place, and if you want to come and see live music, you should be able to have the same shot as everybody else that isn't, paying. So I think that there's first of all, we're blessed with a lot of space, and having the reservations is a really great thing for people that want to plan ahead, especially like if you live far away. We get so many messages about like people driving from Iowa to come for a show on a Saturday at 2. And I think that having a small team and a really great community around us helps us figure out ways to better serve them and accommodate.
We can take care of your table for Paul Seabar, by the way.
Yeah.
Great.
That's a trade.
Hey, I want everyone to know that he offered that, and I didn't, I'm not cheating or whatever, but we'll take it. I'm a fan of Paul. Maybe tell us a little bit, not maybe, there's been some exciting announcements. What do we have to look forward to this year from Fitzgerald's?
A ton.
Yeah.
We're opening. We're in the process of opening Baby Gold Barbecue, which will be on site in the restaurant location on the patio. So that is a Fitzgerald's operation. Baby Gold Barbecue is partnered with John Mannion, who's a renowned Chicago chef and lives in Berwyn. So we are working towards that. We still don't have an opening date for the restaurant yet, but we want to be serving people food as soon as we can.
Sure.
And the patio opens on Wednesday with Expo 76, one of our longtime groups, and we're coming out, with a full April, May, June calendar. There's a lot more touring artists now, and so we'll have great Chicago acts and Berwyn acts and great touring acts, and serving barbecue outdoors. It's just kind of a magical place. There's also an Airbnb that I'll let Grace.
Yeah, right above the
about.
restaurant space. Will's wife, Jess, decorated this beautiful 3-bedroom apartment that you can stay in. So on a Saturday, you can come and check in, and then you have an entire day full of live music. You have really, really good barbecue that you can eat.
Yeah.
And then, you check out on Sunday and you can stay for another full day. It's a whole experience. I think it's all integrated with each other. And once you visit the property, it feels really good to be there. It's live music and it's food. It's really, really good drinks. It's like the whole thing. So it's hard to come by these days, I think, with COVID. And the future is looking really, really bright just from the stuff that we know we have, like the patio, and we have a Baby Gold Barbecue opening. Once, club shows come back too, it's just going to be a really great place, an experience for people.
It's like an amusement park,
Yeah,
right?
it really is.
Yeah.
It's like Six Flags for the live music industry.
I mean, if you're looking for a easy vacation, you don't have to leave Illinois.
It's pretty
You know.
fascinating, and that is something I'm assuming off the Fitzgerald's website. You can. This is how we hunt for the Airbnb.
Yes, it is. Yeah, on our website, I believe. If you can't find it, reach out to me.
Yeah.
Contact at fitzgeraldsnightclub.com. Sign up for our newsletter. That's like the best way to find
Sure.
out, what's happening in the future. Yeah, but everything's on our website.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to thank both of you for being here, Grace Jackson, Donnie Biggins, Fitzgerald's, and I want to see if Donnie will play us one more tune to close out the evening. This has been great conversation. I
Thank you
really
so
appreciate
much.
both of
This
Thank
is
you
really
so much
cool.
for having us.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, the venue.
All right, so this is a sham song. My off switch, it don't exist. Turn on, turn up. I gotta scratch that itch and it's over. Even before I begin, I'm going out tonight. I'm gonna find me a reason to live. And my baby, she says to me, gotta keep it cool. I can't act a fool, but I'm fooling even before I begin. I'm going out tonight. I'm gonna find me a reason to live. So if you happen to turn me on, I hope you're ready to go all night long. Oh, oh. My fantasies cannot contain me. I'm a cannonball blasting through your wall, and I'm crushing every offer I get. I got bloodshot eyes and my face is turning red. So if you happen to turn me on, I hope you're ready to go all night long. Oh, my off switch, it don't exist. Turn on, turn up. I gotta scratch that itch and it's over. Even before I begin, I'm going out tonight. I'm gonna find me a reason to live. I'm going out tonight. I'm gonna find me a reason to live. Going to Berwyn and Aurora. Going out tonight. I'm gonna find me a reason to live.
Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Fitzgerald's. Thank you, the venue. Thank you to all our wonderful volunteers. Have a good evening, everybody. I'm holding. Everybody hold.